Boy, this weekend matters, guys. Daukaus versus Curtis Blaydes. I'm keeping a close eye on this one, and not because of the fight. Now, I happen to believe in Daukaus. I happen to believe in Curtis Blaydes. Curtis Blaydes is a tough night out. I cannot understand for the life of me why Curtis is not over. This is a main event fight. I mean, I lay this out for you guys all the time. This is a main event fighter who will truly take on anybody. He won the same championship in collegiate wrestling that Jon Jones and Colby Covington won, just to put in perspective for you. This is a real guy who got complaints over time that he was the old school boring wrestler. Hard for me to hear, but I do acknowledge that can be true. As wrestlers, we got to change some stuff that were more pleasant, aesthetically speaking. But he did it. Curtis Blaydes is Mr. Kickboxer now. Curtis Blaydes is Mr. In Shape. His ground and pound is not holding you down and being a wet blanket. He take you down, sure, but then he's doing great damage. Curtis Blaydes is a very good fighter. And you must pay respect to the fact that he got in there with Ngannou. I think all of you agree that Ngannou's very good. I think that you agree on that. I know that's not unanimous. You're always going to get a jerk out there. However, can we all agree that he's terrifying? That is not a word that I use to describe other men. I don't know if I've ever used that word before to describe another man. And not necessarily because I didn't think. I would never admit it. I got my ego too. He's terrifying. He's the biggest man I've ever seen. I've stood next to Shaquille O'Neal. I swear to goodness, Francis is bigger. I realize a scale and a tape measure is going to tell me that I'm completely right. That's how big he looks. 260 and 260 is not the same thing. Some guys can do 260 different, right? You know what I'm saying? Curtis did that fight. He did that fight twice. The first time, maybe he didn't know what he was getting into. He sure as hell did the second time, and he went out of the country. Some bitch, Curtis Blaydes, flew 22 hours to go fight the most terrifying man in the world a second time. Second time went the same as the first time, and Curtis is trying to get in there for a third time. I don't know how you can't love that, not just like him. I think you need to love Curtis Blaydes. And I've asked you guys countless times, what has Curtis ever done? Is it something I missed? Was Curtis a jerk somewhere and I just didn't see it? Was Curtis in trouble somewhere and I just didn't see it? You never answered me, which tells me no. There's just something about Curtis that's having a hard time getting over. Okay. But Curtis is a main event fighter. Curtis Blaydes, I believe, lost his last fight. Unless I'm missing track, his last fight was Derek Lewis, of which he lost. He's returning to a main event. It doesn't work that way. Getting to a main event, the only thing bigger than a main event is a title fight, and generally a title fight is a main event, right? I mean, you're splitting hairs here. I get that when the belt's up, it's still bigger, but this is as big as it gets. He gets starched and he returns to a main event because he's good. He's handsome on top of that. He's decent at speaking on top of that. He's got a great attitude on top of that. He says yes when he gets asked to do something. I don't know what about Curtis doesn't get over. But when you talk about Daukaus, Daukaus is a rough customer. These guys have the common opponent in Derek Lewis with the exact same result. You match them up, history of the sport tells you that. As soon as Daukaus got knocked out by Derek Lewis, I did come and tell you guys his next fight will be Curtis Blaydes. Well, there's a formula. There's a rule. I didn't have inside information. That's the way that it works. Okay, great. I also think I proved my point. You get two pretty good guys here. They got a common opponent. They both ate a hand that none of us could have eaten. They both got the same result for eating the hand. Now, I give you this entire diatribe because I believe this is the fight that feeds in to Tuivasa. Tai Tuivasa was called out by Aspinall. I don't think they're going to do that fight because I think that Tom is on his rise a little quicker than possibly Tom at the time he did the call out is aware of. Tom actually would be not in a very good position to judge how meteoric that performance over Volkov was right after that performance. He would not be in the position. All the rest of us watching it could say, okay, hey, we've got a star amongst us. Beating a former world champion, Arlovsky. He's now in a main event in his home country. Got an arena full of people cheering and chanting his name. Oh, and by the way, he stopped the former number 4 ranked fighter in the world. Big deal. Tuivasa is a star, and Tuivasa is getting better. Now, you don't get to carry him. Even if you wanted Tuivasa to win, I want him to win. You can't. You can't carry him. That's just not what we do over here. In addition to that, his ranking's too goddamn high. You simply cannot carry him. Not to mention nobody's trying. evident of the fact that he just fought a 2-time #1 contender for the world championship in his hometown. It'd have been a lot better for the business if Derek had won. And I only bring you that example to prove the point. That's just not what they do here. Nobody gets handed anything. So Ty's going to have to fight somebody, but you can still operate within a little bit of wiggle room. And I just think that that's where Curtis Blaydes or Daukaus comes in. Curtis is much more polished, but Curtis does have a history of falling down when he's hit right on the chin. So matchup X's and O's wise, it works. Daukaus is not as skilled, but god damn, he's a brawler. Daukaus is good. Daukaus is a rough night out. And those are the same things that you would say about Tai. I'm just light on the idea. I like the idea of Aspinall versus Tai. I admit that. I don't like the timing of it. They're both coming up so fast. Why knock one of them off the tracks? Why be guaranteed? That's the risk that you have to take every single night as the promoter. You know which guy is going to get the bigger bump. You know at all times, you thumb right on it, what would be better for business. But you got a 50% chance. It's not all that good. It's a very dangerous business, and it's why not very many people go into it. The other side of the coin is, if you put two rising stars together, you are guaranteed. Not a maybe. Not wishful thinking, let me cross my fingers. You are guaranteed I'm going to knock one of these main eventers off the tracks. I just don't love that timing. And when I do look at the guys, Tuivasa is limited in his skills. He's getting better quickly. But he's dog tough and he's a rough night out for anybody. But the closer you can find to a brawler, one reason that Tuivasa looks so good against Derek Lewis is that's a fellow brawler. They both play the same game, which is a risky one. I step here, you step here, let's go to war. Oh, by the way, the day before we both had to beat the scale, we both barely beat the scale. Like, there's a certain kind of guy. And I just think the winner of Lewis and Daukaus, who will return to a main event, or if they go on a pay-per-view, at least be very high up on the card, needs a fellow main eventer, and or if you're on a pay-per-view, somebody very high up on the card. And they need a fighting chance. They need to have a similar style. So I'm paying very close attention to this weekend. I do believe between Tuivasa and Tom Aspinall, between the two of them, their next opponent is going to come out of this fight. Whoever wins between Blaydes and Daukaus will feed into either Tuivasa or Aspinall. If you'll give me that kind of wiggle room. If you won't, I'm going to tell you it's going to be Tuivasa.